Okay, let's talk about face masks. You know, the surgical kind, plain old cotton cloth homemade, and the N95 respirators. I got a couple requests to do a video going over the efficacy of these masks and the spread of COVID. So go over some articles I found in studies and some science journals, and we'll try to get to the bottom of whether or not these things are actually helping us and working, and see what's what. So let's take a look at the first article here. And again, before we get into all this, I will put all the relevant URLs to everything that I looked at in the description box below this video. So here is the one trial test here that I kept finding. So I found this initially, and then you'll see subsequent articles that I go through here that keep referencing back to this trial. Now, this one was done in South Korea. It was done with N95 surgical and cotton masks. So we'll go over a little bit here. They had the people cough into a petri dish, and then they went and take a look at the petri dish to see if there was COVID-19 in the petri dish, and wearing each mask and then not wearing a mask. So what they found is they had the patients cough. They were instructed to cough 5 times each into the petri dish while wearing the following masks: no mask, surgical mask, cotton mask, and again with no mask. A separate petri dish was used for each of the 5 coughing episodes. And then they took the mask surfaces and swabbed on the inside and the outside of the mask surface to see if they could come up with COVID-19 on the mask surfaces. What they found was that the saliva samples from the 4 participants were logged, and respectively the median viral loads after coughs without a mask, with a surgical mask, and with a cotton mask were. So without a mask, it was 2.56 log copies per milliliter. And then with a surgical mask, it was 2.42 log copies per milliliter. And with a cotton mask, it was 1.85 log copies per milliliter, respectively. All swabs from the outer mask surfaces of the masks were positive for SARS-CoV, whereas most swabs from the inner mask surfaces were negative. So what they found is neither surgical nor cotton masks were effectively filtered SARS-CoV-2 during coughs by infected patients. Prior evidence that surgical masks effectively filtered influenza informed recommendations that patients with confirmed or suspected COVID-19 should wear face masks to prevent transmission. However, the size and concentrations of SARS-CoV in aerosols generated during coughing are unknown. Demonstrated that surgical masks did not exhibit adequate filter performance against aerosols measuring 0.92 and 3.1 in diameter. What this study is really telling us is that, at least in a very controlled setting of people coughing into a petri dish, that is only, I believe it's only, this other one tells you here. Here you go. Yeah. That's only 7.8 inches away from their mouth. This is a different article that's referencing the study we just looked at. And this study here, they're coughing into petri dishes that are 7.8 inches away. So that's extremely close. I highly doubt, people are around you when you go out in certain settings that are that close to you. So this may not really be too efficient, but what it has found is that the surgical masks, the cotton masks, are not really efficient at stopping SARS from blocking SARS after being expelled through a cough. This, is like I said, is a scenario where you're probably not going to find yourself in. You're probably going to find yourself in scenarios where people are further away from you than 7.8 inches. But this study found that the masks aren't really doing much. This experiment did not include N95s and does not reflect the actual transmission infection from patients with COVID-19 wearing different types of masks. So they only used, in the beginning I spoke incorrectly there. They only used surgical and cotton masks in this test. And neither of them really seem to be efficient at stopping COVID SARS from getting on the Petri dish. So again, this study here, or this article here, is referencing back to that study we just went over. One study published April 6th in the Journal of Annals of Internal Medicine found that they did not. The study, led by South Korean researchers, involved 4 patients cough into a Petri dish 7.8 inches, 20 centimeters away. Patients cough without mask, wearing disposable surgical masks, and again with 100% cotton mask. Neither mask meaningfully decreased the viral load coughed into the Petri dishes, but experts involved in the study who were contacted by Live Science were hesitant to put much stock into the findings. The researchers did not look at a distance beyond 7.8 inches, see if droplets traveled as far while people were wearing masks. So again, there's obviously a very controlled setting. There's going to be different circumstances when you're out and about in the real world. Here is another article that goes through and references that same study. This is what I kept finding when I kept looking this up. The research conducted by investigators in the University of Ulsan College of Medicine, in Chungang University Hospital, in Sejong University, all in Seoul, South Korea. Well, that's a mouthful. Involved a group of 4 participants. Is the same referencing the same study here. And the only one I found that going through N95, I found this on about N95 respirators and preventing COVID-19 healthcare. So this is just obviously the abstract brief summary of it all. Conclusions were: low certainty evidence suggests that medical masks and N95 respirators offer similar protection against viral respiratory infection, including coronavirus, in healthcare workers during non-aerosol generating care. Preservation of N95 respirators for high-risk aerosol generating procedures in this pandemic should be considered when in short supply. And then that brings me to this study I found here, talking about face masks for the general public. Now, this study found that face masks reduce droplet dispersal. Cloth-based face masks reduce emission of particles by variable amounts. The efficiencies are 50 to 70%, and about 70 to 80% of oral bacteria. But this has nothing to do with COVID. This is just droplets from a cough. They're not actually doing a test where the patient or the person has COVID, and they're testing it that way. These are just droplets that are released when you cough. This evidence supports the conclusion that more widespread risk-based face mask adoption can help to control COVID-19 epidemic by reducing the shedding of droplets into the environment from asymptomatic individuals. Again, these studies are the one study, and then a lot of the articles, the science journals that reference back to that one study. It's not a great study because it's first of all, it's only 4 patients. It's a very controlled study with petri dishes that are 7.8 inches away from their mouth. I doubt someone is going to be standing 7.8 inches away from your mouth when you're, at Walmart or wherever you are. But again, there are other studies that say that cloth masks, homemade cloth masks, and surgical masks do reduce the droplets that are produced when you cough. Now, they say nothing about actually blocking SARS-CoV because the SARS-CoV is going to be much smaller in microns than, just a droplet of, your saliva when you cough. Now, here's a very interesting article, or should I say study, about the physics of fluids that I found. And this obviously pertains to COVID, the reason that they're doing this. So this is interesting. Shows you right here, when you cough, the droplets, when there's no wind. Okay, so this 2 meters is what you see here, which is, slightly over 6 feet. So in 1 second, you'll see how far it is. 5 seconds, it's almost, it's falling to the ground. It's traveling about 1 meter, a little less than 1 meter, about little over 3 feet. 15 seconds, 20, 25, 40. By about 49 seconds, it's all on the ground, less than a meter or a little more than a meter away from you. Here's where it gets interesting. Now look at this. With the wind, the whole thing changes. So if it's a windy day out there, we have wind at 4 kilometers. In 5 seconds, it's dispersed into the air, and it's about 6 meters from you in 5 seconds. You have, in 5 seconds with no wind, it's about a meter from you, and it's almost fallen completely to the ground already. In 5 seconds with 4 kilometers of wind, we're up at 6 meters away from you. And then here we go with 15 kilometers per hour wind. It is in less than 2 seconds, 1.6 seconds later, it's about 6 meters away from you. Obviously, you can see it dispersing a little further into the air with a stronger wind as time goes on. This is definitely concerning, right? If it's obviously, this is just droplets of your cough, but if you are sick with COVID, obviously coronavirus is within these droplets, and if it's windy, in less than 2 seconds, 15 kilometers, it's already traveled 6 meters away from you. So this is definitely very interesting. If it's windy, just, I don't know, stay inside or something. Some pretty good information in terms of the physics of fluids and, coughing and droplets and aerosols and whatnot. So in what I take away from this and what I would be doing is, we don't yet have enough information really to discern whether masks really are a great way to defend against the viral spread in the air of coronavirus. So what I would do is just get an N95 mask if you can, because they seem to be a little better than the surgical and the cloth at reducing the droplet spread. If you can't, get a surgical or a cloth made mask and just wear it, because we don't know enough yet whether or not it actually helps. So there's really no risk or downside to wearing it, but there may be a risk or downside to not wearing it. So just wear it. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to cause any problems. You shouldn't be embarrassed by it. It's actually should show a sign of respect for people around you, because you're worried about spreading it to others, and that's why you have this mask on, as well as protecting yourself. So I would, again, just stop the hissy fitting and the fights. And you see these videos on social media of people crying about not having to wear a mask when they go in a certain establishment. Or I was reading that people are boycotting Costco because they're making it mandatory they have to wear a mask when you go in there. And while the science is still out on whether or not the mask is really truly effective or not, we should take the proper precautions and steps, because again, the risk of wearing it is none, but the risk of not wearing it might be that you spread the disease around. So just wear it.